Well, hi, GraceChurch. My name is Chris Groover, and I live in Dallas, Texas. In fact, right now I'm working at Tree Bible Fellowship, and I'm the high school pastor there. And just to tell you a little bit about me, I've been in ministry for almost 9 years now, doing either middle school ministry or high school ministry. About 6 of those years was in Tampa, Florida, at a church called Bay Life Church. And for the past 3 years, I've been at Tree Bible, primarily doing the high school ministry, but also being over top of the student mission department as well. My wife and I, Sarah, have been married about 9 years now, and we have a little boy named Lucas that's about to turn 2, and he brings a ton of joy into our life. And we're excited and just really looking forward to what we believe is a step and a calling that God is directing in our life. And we're not sure what that is, but we're very interested, and so far I've loved hearing about Grace Church, and hopefully this video will help you guys get to know me a little bit better. Well, I believe in the power of the local church primarily because of 2 reasons. The first reason being that I personally experienced the grace of God via the local church during my freshman year at Clemson University, in which God brought a guy named Alan into my life who was a part of a local congregation. And at that time in my journey, I was not a believer. And Alan invited me to a freshman guys small group study. And so I figured, hey, why not? And I went to it. And it was via that community and hearing the gospel really presented well for the first time that I gave my life over to Jesus. And I look back and I'm eternally grateful for the impact that the local church had in my life personally. But also really for the second reason and the second kind of big thing that really showed the power of the local church in my life as well happened between my junior and my senior year of college, in which I did an internship in a youth group down in Tampa, Florida. And it was at that time that I felt the calling of the Lord on my life to pursue ministry as a full-time career. And that's where I experienced and identified my purpose in life. My passions kind of began to surface and bubble up. And I really received my calling at that time. And from that point forward, over the last 9 years, God's been using me in the context of the local church. And of course, I believe that Jesus came and he died not only to save us and to redeem us, but also to start the church as well. And I'm a big believer in it. The church is the primary driving force and the primary vehicle of grace that we have here on this earth to point people to Jesus Christ. And so I'm a big proponent and believer of the power of the local church. The hardest thing that I've ever had to do in my life by far happened during my second year of ministry, in which at the church that I was working at the time had a pastor on call kind of deal where for a week, if someone called into the church or if there's an emergency, they got a hold of you. And during my second year of ministry, I got this phone call late at night one time, and it was a person that went to our church, and essentially her neighbor, who did not go to church at all, had just died in her sleep. And she was at the age of 32 at that time, and she had left behind 3 young kids and her husband. And so they asked me if I could do the funeral because they had no connections. They didn't go to church. They weren't even believers. And so I said, of course, I would love to do that. That would be an honor for me. And so I just recall having conversations with his husband, having him at my house, planning the funeral, talking to him about my faith and about God, and him just quite honestly, of course, not being open to it and not being a believer, didn't really receive a lot of it. But we went through the funeral procession, and it was such a hard funeral to do because I knew that this lady was not a believer in Jesus. But yet it was an honor for me to be a part of that. And I just recall a moment in the funeral where this little boy, who was maybe 4 years old at the time, got up and he just shared with the crowd how much he loved his mom and how much he missed her. And for me, it was one of those defining moments in my life where it was the hardest thing that I ever had to do. But it also was a very shaping experience for me because it just reminded me of the importance and the time-sensitive nature that we live in this earth and that we operate on, especially when it comes to sharing Christ and how we're not promised tomorrow. And so for me, that was a hard experience, but yet it was also a very defining experience for me. I would say that probably one of the most shaping experiences that I've had more recently in my life was about 3 years ago, and I was listening to a sermon from a guy named Jeff Henderson at North Point Community Church. And really, the premise of his talk was to begin to see yourself as other people see you. And so he ended it by giving this application to the audience, and he said, "Hey, I would love for you this week to go and to ask other people, your wife, your coworkers, your friends, what's it like to be on the other side of me?" And so I love that challenge, and it was kind of scary to enter into that, but I began to go to my wife and to some former coworkers and former bosses and current coworkers and friends, and simply ask them that question. And in the midst of it, I was excited, but I knew that I was going to hear some hard truth. And it was a great experience, and it was very shaping for me because the way that I saw myself, the way that I saw my leadership and how I related to people was not always the way that other people experienced what they experienced on the other side of me. And so I learned a ton of lessons through that, a ton of leadership lessons, a ton of lessons on how to be a better husband, a ton of lessons on how to be a better friend, and really a lot of lessons on how to be a better pastor and employee and coworker. And for me, that was a great defining moment because it's really allowed me to be more introspective and to really evaluate how I'm doing in ministry and how God's really using me as I ask other people and get their advice and allow them to speak into my life. Well, thank you, Grace Church, so much for allowing me to shoot this video and to send these responses your way. I really appreciate being a part of this process, and I really hope to talk to you guys more soon. Blessings.